only $49.99 per month. That's your business made limitless. That's Life Unlimited.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. With 6 days until Election Day, both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are holding dueling events in key states. The vice president spent the afternoon in North Carolina before traveling to the battleground states of Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. The Harris campaign is doing damage control after Biden appeared to refer to Trump supporters as garbage.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable. And it's un-American.
The former president is also holding rallies in the swing states of North Carolina and Wisconsin. During a speech in the Tar Heel state, Trump accused Harris of trying to disassociate from Biden's policies. Trump also responded directly to the president's controversial remark.
My response to Joe and Kamala is very simple. You can't lead America if you don't love Americans. You just can't.
Concerns mounting over voter confidence following issues at ballot boxes nationwide. In Florida, an 18-year-old is in custody after threatening voters while wielding a machete. Meanwhile, in Washington, a woman received 16 unopened ballots addressed to her unit under different names she'd never heard of before. Election officials are asking for patience amid record turnout in several states. Here now is your weather on the ones.
We're taking a look at the big picture. We have some showers and storms developing across parts of the Midwest. Some of these could produce damaging wind gusts as well as hail and maybe even an isolated tornado threat. Behind that, in the Rockies, some rain and snow showing up there with that low pressure system, but that risk for severe weather going to be ongoing through the overnight hours. And we will see continued warmth across parts of the East Coast as we get closer to Halloween tomorrow, and going to be stormy in the west as the next system moves in off the Pacific Northwest.
6 days, can you imagine? I will end inflation. I will stop the massive invasion of criminals into our country. And I will bring back a thing called the American dream.
We have just 6 days left in one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime. And make no mistake, we will win.
Both former Presidents Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris making their final pitches to voters during dueling rallies in key battleground states Tuesday. And with just 6 days until election, both campaigns are conveying a message of hope for the future. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharon Tazwell. More than 62 million Americans have voted early as several states continue to see historic turnout. But it all comes down to just 7 key battleground states that many experts believe will decide the next commander-in-chief. Among those states, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, where Trump and Harris are spending their Wednesday. Both candidates wrapped up rallies in the Tar Heel state earlier in the day, and both candidates will finish off their evenings in the swing state of Wisconsin. Spectrum's Evan Kozloff is in Washington with the latest on the race for the White House.
With time running out, both candidates starting their day on Wednesday by campaigning in North Carolina. Harris rallying in the Democratic stronghold of Raleigh.
6 days, can you imagine?
While Trump was an hour east in more rural Rocky Mount.
I will end inflation. I will stop the massive invasion of criminals into our country. And I will bring back a thing called the American dream. Isn't that nice?
I pledge to be a president for all Americans and to always put country above party and self.
The two candidates also focused on the Rust Belt on Wednesday. Harris set to campaign in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and Madison, Wisconsin. Trump also heading to Wisconsin for a rally with retired Packers legend Brett Favre in Green Bay.
He called them garbage.
Trump sought to capitalize on a controversial remark by President Joe Biden on Tuesday, while responding to an offensive joke by a comedian at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally on Sunday who called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Biden said this.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Biden quickly tried to clarify, posting on social media that he was calling the rally's rhetoric garbage. But Trump has pounced on the comment, calling it an attack on all of his supporters.
You can't lead America if you don't love Americans. You just
Harris also responding to the controversy.
I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for.
Evan Kozlov joins us now from Washington. Evan, we're already starting to see election lawsuits from the Trump campaign. What can you tell us about that?
Well, this all centers around Bucks County, which is a key suburb of Philadelphia. In Bucks County, voters can come to the election offices in person to apply for a mail-in ballot. It's essentially a way to vote early. And the Trump campaign sued, arguing that this process should be extended. They argued that voters were essentially being disenfranchised due to long lines. In the end, the judge agreed, extending this process until Friday. Now, in a way, all of this is quite ordinary. Campaigns often file lawsuits to challenge election laws and deadlines, but it's also been shrouded in rampant misinformation on social media. Many Trump allies are pointing to the long lines and the decision by some offices to stop voting in the late afternoon as voter suppression. Trump himself posted online that Pennsylvania is cheating at, quote, large-scale levels rarely seen before. Pennsylvania's governor called this, quote, the same old playbook to stoke chaos as Trump did 4 years ago. Sharon?
All right, Evan Kozlov in Washington. Thanks. As the White House works to clear up President Biden's controversial garbage comments, the former president, along with other Republicans, are already looking to use it to their advantage. Spectrum political anchor Alex Cohen joins us from Los Angeles to break it all down. Alex, can you give us a deeper explanation behind the president's comments, and how is it having an impact on the vice president's message to voters?
You know, Sharon, there is this notion in politics of an October surprise, and with all the surprises and twists we've had this year, October's actually been relatively calm. But I think if there has been an October surprise, it's been these remarks made at Madison Square Garden and the way in which they've reverberated. Now, I cannot say what was going on in President Biden's mind when he made these remarks. My guess is that he's tired of the vitriol that he has seen from Donald Trump and his allies aimed at so many communities. That said, it really landed in a wrong way with many folks. We see Vice President Kamala Harris trying to distance herself from it, because we've seen in the past, especially who can forget in 2016, when Hillary Clinton referred to Trump supporters as deplorables, that can have a real impact. At the same time, some are wondering, is it fair for Trump and his allies to be able to say the things that they've said and not face harsh criticism, rather, for it as well?
All right, so Alex, both Trump and Harris are receiving new celebrity endorsements Tuesday. What can you tell us about that?
Let's start with Donald Trump. He received support today from astronaut Buzz Aldrin, who said his decision was really based on what has happened to the U.S. space program in recent years and his disappointment with that. For Kamala Harris, you just saw there on your screen, our former governor here in California, Republican Arnold Schwarzenegger, who made it very clear in a post on social media that he doesn't usually do endorsements. He doesn't even like politics at this point, but given what he has seen so far, he thinks it's a very clear choice to not choose Donald Trump and instead select Kamala Harris. One more interesting one, Nicky Jam, a Puerto Rican musician who had initially supported Donald Trump, in a social media post today now retracting that support based on these jokes, so-called jokes, that were made in Madison Square Garden.
All right, Alex Cohen in Los Angeles. As always, thanks.
Thank you.
Spectrum News is your place to be for election night. We have coast-to-coast coverage as voters make their voice heard nationwide. It all starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also watch for free on the Spectrum News app. Kamala Harris laying out her vision during a rally in North Carolina as a surprise guest rallies with Trump in Wisconsin. Our Decision 2024 coverage continues just ahead.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Strengthening democracy by informing your community. That's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
What if you never had to worry about what you could do? Because you could do anything. Anywhere could be the center of everywhere. And boundaries only existed to be pushed. So the only limit you faced was how big you could dream. What would you do then? Some pretty cool stuff, I bet. Yeah, that'd be some life. That'd be life unlimited.
Drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kids should know.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Welcome back to your Weather on the Ones. I'm meteorologist Brittany Hamilton, and we've already been seeing those storms developing across parts of the Midwest. Now, this is going to be ongoing through the overnight hours, and the Storm Prediction Center giving some areas a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5. So that's a pretty decent risk of those severe storms, mainly hail as well as damaging wind. I would say damaging wind being the bigger threat with this. We could see some rainfall that becomes a bit heavy at times, and then an isolated tornado threat as well. So a few spin-ups not out of the question. So definitely keeping an eye across parts of the plains and the Midwest as we go through tonight. As we time this out going through the overnight hours, you notice these storms moving through areas like Missouri. By the time we get into Thursday morning, Halloween morning, you may be waking up to some rain in St. Louis, moving through areas like Indiana as well, and all the way back through Arkansas and Texas, dealing with some storms. Now, by that point, I think the risk for severe weather is going to be a bit lower as we continue through the overnight hours, but still just want to have a way to get those alerts as those storms pass through. Then we'll start to see things clearing out just in time for trick-or-treating for some spots. Now, on the East Coast, especially in the Northeast, we have some areas that are likely to set new records for Halloween. So New York City, the record is 75. The forecast for Thursday, 80 degrees. Forecast of 81 in Philly. Now, the record's 82, so we might get very close to that one, but if we overachieve a little bit, could get to 82 as well. And in Augusta, Maine, the record is 69 degrees on Halloween and forecasting 74. So some toasty weather expected for some spots. Down in Atlanta, 81 degrees on Thursday, 73 in Memphis with a few showers and storms, and then cooler behind that front. Kansas City, high of 56 on Halloween, 58 for Denver, and Minneapolis looking at a high of 42 with a mix of some rain and snow.
Decision 20 2024 coverage continues as both campaigns are in key battleground states. Less than a week until Election Day. Kamala Harris spent part of her day in North Carolina as she tries to reach as many undecided voters as possible. Spectrum's Ruben Jones was there and joins us with more.
This rally in front of an estimated more than 8,000 people came a day after the vice president delivered that major speech in Washington, D.C., the same place where former President Donald Trump once spoke to his supporters on January 6, 2021, before some of them stormed the U.S. Capitol. Today, the vice president emphasizing something we will hear a lot from her in the coming days, that she will be able to bridge the divide and work with people she disagrees with in her administration. In her 20th stop to North Carolina since becoming vice president, Kamala Harris made a direct plea to these battleground state voters.
We need you to vote early, North Carolina.
Polls show Harris and Trump neck and neck in the state, and more than 40% of registered voters have already cast their ballot.
We're still working to persuade some people who haven't decided, and those people haven't yet voted. But it's also important for us to use these last few days to make sure that we get our supporters to the polls.
Harris, coming off her major speech in Washington Tuesday, echoed a message of unity, saying this after a protester started yelling during her speech.
Unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe people who disagree with me are the enemy. He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table.
She hopes that message will win over moderate Republicans, including voters who supported former Governor Nikki Haley in the Republican primary. Voters like Joseph Pisco, who says Harris will be the first Democrat he's ever voted for. He hopes a Harris win will be a reset for his party.
Leadership of the GOP is not any longer consistent with my values or principles as a Christian man. In my opinion, it's just right-wing extremism is kind of like infiltrated its way into the Republican Party, and I look at my vote this year as like the emergency brakes.
Harris will be back in North Carolina on Saturday, a state that has not voted for a Democrat for president since 2008. That has not stopped the Harris campaign from investing heavily to try and flip this state blue. In Raleigh, North Carolina, Ruben Jones, Spectrum News.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump is also set to campaign in Wisconsin Wednesday night with former Green Bay Packers quarterback Brett Favre. The retired NFL Hall of Famer will join the former president as a special guest speaker at the rally. The 55-year-old backed Trump during his 2020 run for president as well. More than 250,000 Washington Post readers have canceled their subscription since the paper announced last week it would not make a presidential endorsement. The newspaper released that information Wednesday. Cancellations surged within hours of the original announcement. The paper said it lost roughly 10% of its digital subscribers by Tuesday evening. 3 members of the editorial board have also resigned. Former staffers claim the non-endorsement as an attempt by billionaire Post owner Jeff Bezos to appease former President Trump in case he wins the election. If you have questions before casting your ballot, download our comprehensive voter guide. Just scan the QR code on your screen to get it for free. From finding your polling location to previewing your ballot, our guide has you covered. Buying a home is difficult enough, but a stigmatized property makes the process more complex. Coming up on Spectrum News, why these homes with a spooky past could have an impact.
For the millions of school-aged children across the country, the state of their schools can have a lasting impact on their health and well-being.
The majority of school districts aren't doing comprehensive, regular water quality testing.
As CO2 levels rise in a space, cognitive function takes a direct decline.
We visit 2 school districts working to create safe and healthy environments for their students.
Watch Exploring Your Health, Curing Our Classrooms. Available on the Spectrum News app.
Never have to worry about thinking too big?
because you have a connection that's ready for anything. That's life unlimited. That's Spectrum.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, ask for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Thanks for joining us for your Weather on the Ones. I'm meteorologist Brittany Hamilton, and on satellite and radar, storms definitely ongoing across parts of the Midwest and in the plains. Behind that in the Rockies, we actually have a little bit of rain and snow, so some cooler air behind the frontal boundary that's passing through, and that risk for severe weather still ongoing through tonight. Some areas that include Kansas City and even parts of Oklahoma, a 3 on a scale of 1 to 5, but you also have a marginal risk that extends all the way over to St. Louis, also Wisconsin included in that, and that kicks all the way back down into Texas, Dallas in a 2 on a scale of 1 to 5, and that risk starts to slide a bit to the east as we go through Thursday, and not quite as high of a risk, a marginal risk, including areas like Memphis. And that's as this continues to track through parts of the Midwest as we go through the overnight. We could still have some damaging wind gusts with this, and maybe a few isolated spin-ups. So you do want to have a way to get those alerts through the overnight hours, and by early Thursday morning, we're looking at those storms passing through areas like St. Louis, getting into Indiana as well, and maybe a few storms in Ohio. But by this point, not likely to be as strong. But again, once we get some daytime heating going, we could see some of these storms produce damaging winds once again before things start to clear out. So as we look ahead to the end of the week and the weekend, we're seeing those temperatures a little bit cooler once that front passes through Minneapolis. 49 degrees on Friday, 54 in Chicago, 63 in Kansas City, so a slight warm up from what we're expecting on Thursday. 81 in Atlanta, 83 in New Orleans, so still pretty warm across much of the southeast, and 78 degrees in New York with a few showers there as well. Looking out in the west, you do notice in Seattle some rain showing up, and I do think by the weekend we could see some chances for rain extending pretty far to the south on the west coast. Now, even though you're not seeing a rainy icon for LA, definitely seeing a lot of clouds and not ruling out some moisture coming in for the end of the week. 49 degrees for Boise on Saturday, Denver 61 degrees, some storms possible in Dallas with a high of 77, and still pretty warm across Atlanta, back in the low 80s along with parts of Florida. Now, as we look at tropical satellite, we've been keeping an eye on the Caribbean Sea. We still are watching this area of disorganized thunderstorms here. Does have a moderate chance of development over the next 7 days, so nothing immediate, but we will keep an eye on this as we go through the end of the week and next week.
Children across the country are gearing up for Halloween, but it remains to be seen if the weather will be a trick or a treat. Well, meteorologist Nate Harrington joins us now. Nate, what can our little ghosts and goblins expect on the spookiest day of the year?
It always depends on where you are this time of year. You could have warm weather, you could have a cool down. We are going to have some nasty weather, it does look like, across portions of the central part of the country. But how about record high temperatures on the East Coast? So during the afternoon hours, as everyone's gearing up for trick-or-treating and Halloween, temperatures are going to be in the 80s, possibly record-breaking temperatures in places like New York City. But by the time it's trick-or-treat time, temperatures will drop down into the 70s and 60s across across the East Coast. Fairly pleasant, but still pretty warm for this time of year. Let's go to the midsection of the country. The Mississippi River Valley, not bad. You will see some showers across eastern Texas, Arkansas, right along the Mississippi River, and then into the Great Lakes states. Cooler weather, too. How about Minneapolis? 38 degrees by 7 o'clock or so. Might have to fight with some wind in the windy city of Chicago as well. Down south, more heavy rain. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama dealing with some showers around trick-or-treat time as well. But for Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, things look nice and very pleasant with temperatures close to, if not just a degree or two above average. Out west, how about some snow for your trick-or-treating? It's going to be kind of a sloppy mess out in the west and especially in the Rockies too. But California looking pretty nice with temperatures in the 60s.
Well, there you have it, your Halloween forecast. Meteorologist Nate Harrington, thanks. A new song by the late singer Liam Payne that was set to debut on Friday will now be delayed. The former member of the popular boy band One Direction died October 16th after falling from the third floor of a hotel in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He was 31 years old. One of Payne's producers announced on social media the song Do No Wrong would not come out this week as previously planned. He said it's not the right time and instead it's up to his family when it comes out. The investigation into the singer's death is ongoing. Navigating the real estate market can be scary enough for home buyers and sellers right now. A so-called stigmatized property can make the process even more complex. But some home buyers may see opportunity. Spectrum News anchor Carla Redditt explains the pros and cons of a property's past.
Home buying is an expensive endeavor.
It is arguably the greatest financial decision that you'll make. And so I think it's important to know absolutely everything about that property.
And a home's spooky reputation can impact a deal. The National Association of Realtors says stigmatized properties have been psychologically impacted by events like murder, alleged hauntings, or a notorious previous owner with no real physical impact. Depending on state laws, agents may be obligated to disclose a home's history. But Cindy Hagley, a real estate agent in the California Bay Area, says the honesty is just good practice.
If you don't disclose that to the potential buyer, somebody else is going to disclose it, or even worse, they'll find out about it themselves, and you never want surprises.
Albert Armeri is co-founder of HouseCreep.com, which crowdsources information on stigmatized properties that may not pop up in a homebuyer's research of official disclosures.
This speaks to the importance of doing your research and having resources available to help in that journey.
Bankrate says that buyers willing to overlook a stigma may get a better deal, but downsides could include unwanted visitors to a home with a haunted reputation or high-profile crime history, and resale could be difficult later. Hagley says ultimately buyers need to weigh all the qualities that meet the eye and maybe some that don't.
If you love the neighborhood and you love the home, but you're afraid of a ghost or anything that may or may not be in there, don't buy it.
Carla Redditt, Spectrum News.
The New York Yankees and Los Angeles Dodgers face off in Game 5 of the World Series. The game will take place at Yankee Stadium. Jack Flaherty is the scheduled starting pitcher for the Dodgers, and Garrett Cole is scheduled to start for the Yankees. The Yankees have won 8 of the previous 11 World Series meetings between the clubs, while the Dodgers won 3 times. Dodgers lead the series 3-1. I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90s coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum Enterprise, we give over 80% of the Fortune 500 the technology solutions they need to meet their growing business demands. Whether it's ultra-fast connectivity, seamless transactions, safe and secure data, or reliable always-on technology. These businesses demand better, and we're here to deliver it. Get a network you can rely on with our 100% uptime SLA guarantee.
The warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce. We all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Our journey towards improving mental health doesn't always present a clear path. Every Thursday on Your Mental Health, we listen to voices across our communities, discussing the challenges of everyday life and presenting accessible resources to guide us along the path to our well-being, providing hope and empowering choices that light the way to a healthier you.
Your Mental Health with Dr. Nicole Clark, Thursdays on Spectrum News Plus, available on all your favorite local stories.